So Ben, maybe before we do our little Q&A style, maybe you could just give the group a little bit of an overview about yourself and,
Sure.
and Swiftype.
So, good morning, everybody. Great to see you all. I have been using Pardot for 3.5, 4 years. I was actually using it at a previous company. We were using a platform called Silverpop, and right when I had joined that previous company, they had asked me to evaluate marketing automation because it was a business that was targeting the utility space, and they really were going to be growing very quickly, and we needed to scale our marketing efforts. So we ended up landing in with Pardot because we felt like it was the best fit for us. And then when I made my move to Swiftype, I was really relieved to hear that Swiftype was already using Pardot, so that was a really nice thing to do. My quick background is I've been in the tech space for 10 plus years. I run the marketing business development team for Swiftype. We're a software company that solves search problems for businesses. So that can be anything from when somebody goes to your website and tries to search for something on your actual website, like a piece of information, a white paper, that sort of thing, and they can't find what you're looking for. It's probably because the search box isn't providing relevant results. You can use Swiftype search box and make sure that you're delivering relevant content to your users and optimize that experience for folks. And then we also solve internal search solutions. So if you have like an internal wiki or extranet, or you have multiple customer support databases, we can provide a federated search experience, which basically pulls all of those different databases together. So instead of searching 6 different places, you search one place and bring it all in. And we work with very large enterprise clients ranging from Dr. Pepper to Qualcomm to TechCrunch on the publishing side, Engadget, SurveyMonkey in the customer support space. And it's a really fun business. Search is a fun space. So that's kind of my background. I was born in Houston, Texas, grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, right where the Pardot headquarters is. I got the intro because a buddy of mine was in the same fraternity as the founder of Pardot. So that was kind of how I discovered, but that's the skinny on me.
Awesome, thanks Ben.
Yeah.
So I think for me and hopefully for the bunch here we have today, probably interested in learning a little bit about, for Swiftype, when they made the decision to move forward with Pardot and now that they've been using it for a while, what's been the biggest game changer that you guys have experienced using Pardot?
So the nice thing is it's me and one other person on the marketing side of things, and there's roughly 40 people in the company, and we look at a lot of different verticals. So in the corporate space, there are 2 different buyers. We also look at publishers, and then there's also the internal search problem. So there's a lot of verticals that we need to be going after at the same time. And what's nice about only being 2 people, but leveraging Pardot is just the ability to scale our marketing efforts. And we spend some time up front to really think through the strategy and the plan. That's I think what a lot of your deck kind of impresses on is kind of really think through what your strategy is. But instead of you having to manually go do all of those things yourself and spending all this time trying to handle all this marketing work, you can actually schedule a lot of things. And so for us, we're really focused on putting a lot of leads at the top of the funnel for all those different verticals. And so for things like being able to nurture customers with a bunch of different email drips has been super helpful. But just the ability to essentially take a 2-person marketing team and leverage it to scale to be to handle a lot more things has been a really big deal for us.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think one thing that I experience working with customers is, during implementation, we really focus on a lot of the core functionality and features of Pardot. And some of the things that they're really focused on heavily is reporting and KPIs and those metrics. Thinking about using marketing automation for the first time, did you have any concerns or anxieties around, all right, well, I'm going to adopt this platform and this system. Now I'm going to be, tied to these these metrics and measures. What's that going to look like?
Yeah. So I will say transparently, there was a little bit of insecurity there, because it's okay, there's going to be a lot of numbers here. I hope I'm generating the right kinds of MQLs, because we invest heavily in grading and scoring because there are so many verticals, and our average deal size is not, it's not like a 6-figure deal, it's more in the 4 to 5 year deals. So we need a lot of deals to really grow quickly. So we need a lot of leads and a lot of MQLs. And so for us, first off, we've like started using Salesforce dashboards, building reports out. So I have real-time screenshots of what's going on with like the key metrics that we look at. But I had to kind of get over a little bit of insecurity initially because I was like, okay, so all these numbers, I'm gonna have to show them to my CEO on a weekly basis, and we have to like kind of work through that. But I have to say I've gotten a lot more confidence about it because I have data to actually back up what we're doing. And a lot of the data hasn't always been that great. Like we actually just did an outbound email campaign where we iterated the content 13 times because we really felt like that targeting was super important. And so we isolated, we wanted to make sure the targeting was right and that we really needed to be focused on the message. And so we were trying a couple of different messages with a specific call to action and offer. And I think just without having that kind of data there to tell you, hey, like you spread the net too wide, or you've got the right net, but your message isn't there, or the message is there, but the offer is not there, or that sort of thing, really kind of helps you test it. And we're in the software space, so like anybody that has a software company knows that like you build an MVP and then you iterate on that MVP over and over and over and over again until you figure out what works. And I've very quickly learned through kind of working through Pardot and Salesforce that's pretty much the same thing. Like you build a bunch of MVPs just to get out in the game, and then you iterate constantly on it until you find what works, and then you scale it. And so to have that data and those key metrics there to just kind of keep you honest and make sure that you're not going down the wrong path has been really helpful for us. We spend a lot of time looking at the reactions of all the things that we send out.
That's great, and I'm glad you shared that. I think I hear that a lot from my customers too, where they're at first nervous about the reporting side of it, but had you not known those metrics, you wouldn't have been focusing in the right areas. So
that's right.
That's great. I think, for this group and this audience, and I work with a lot of different types of businesses and organizations, but if you're, and I know you used Pardot previously, and when you came to Swiftype, they were already using it, but when Swiftype was thinking about using marketing automation and thinking about moving forward with Pardot, how did they know they were ready for marketing automation? How does this group, if they've never used marketing automation before, how do they know when to pull the trigger?
So Swiftype was actually using HubSpot beforehand.
Oh, okay.
And they had basically said, look, we're a bunch of engineers, we're not marketers, and so we can't get ourselves, like we need to do what we do best, and then we need to be able to find a way to scale the other things that we don't do as well, because that's ultimately the way you grow a business. And so they got to this place where it was just finally like, look, this is a piece of software that allows you to scale multiple tactics at the same time, and allows you to iterate on that. So I think they got into the buy-in of using marketing automation pretty quickly because they needed it. It was a freemium tool, and people were using the tool all the time, and there was really a targeting issue, and so they needed to get into the game and start emailing people on a weekly basis and doing newsletters and having social media and doing webinars and producing lots of content and all that sort of thing, and being able to track it all and make sure that the message is resonating to the target audience at the right time. So I think that was important, and then the move from HubSpot to Pardot was just the user experience was a lot easier in Pardot than it was for HubSpot, and I found the same thing from moving from Silverpop to Pardot multiple years ago with a company that was 600 people. So I mean, I'm in a business of 40 now, so I've kind of seen both of the worlds there.
That's great. That's awesome. Now, do you think? Oh, sorry. Did we have a question out there?
No, but you were about to ask me something.
Oh no. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Maybe just talk about your experience with scoring, lead scoring, and what you've seen as best practices and what's worked, what's not. I'm assuming from what you said that you're throwing leads to an inside
SDR team.
An SDR type of model.
Correct.
Not a field type. So
correct.
Maybe just talk about scoring and the whole feedback loop on that scoring. How do you know? How have you iterated on that scoring?
Sure. So we've iterated on it multiple times, and it's gotten better every time. Basically, we want to get folks in a position where they're ready to talk to a sales team. And then the SDR team is there to qualify and schedule meetings with closers, right? That's kind of the process that we've set up for ourselves. So initially, we were like way in the early game. Like anytime somebody registered for a webinar, downloaded a white paper, really did anything, they immediately became something that the sales team needed to go talk to. And so sales had these huge lists of customers, and they were literally just start at the top and start trying to schedule appointments with everybody. And that was not a efficient use of time because there were so many people that just weren't ready to have a conversation with us, in the flesh, so to speak. And so what we've implemented today is there are certain tactics that certainly require that are like no-brainers. So someone fills out a contact sales form, like they automatically hit the scoring threshold of 50, which we've kind of landed at as a place for us to do it. In my previous gig, it was 100. And because there were a lot, the sales cycle was 12 to 24 months, and so you needed a lot more touch points in order to get somebody to be in a good place to have a sales conversation. But even though search is super technical, like the business problems are people can't find what they're looking for on the website. We have a really good user experience. We provide relevant results. You make more money or lower ticket volumes on the customer support side. Like it's a pretty easy sell. We usually close within 90 days. So we don't need a whole lot of like touch points in order to communicate that message to somebody. So we actually initially then did scoring where it was going to be to 100, and we gave grades of like webinars would get 50 points for registering and another 50 points for attending, and white papers got a certain score. Where we've kind of iterated on that is we took a look, and I'm glad you had the slide, which is basically the content funnel of where are you in the funnel. The content itself is tied to each of those different stages, and we have different points allocated for those stages. So if someone's consuming a bunch of top level stuff, that's really great, but it might still not mean that they're in a place to where they want to have a sales conversation. And so it's on us to then try to move them into that next phase of the conversation and get them to a webinar or something that's a little more meaty to then ultimately have a conversation with sales. And so it's definitely iterated. I mean, there's content that I have that's 10 points, and there's content that I have that's 20 to 30 points, just depending on what it is and what type of vertical we're focused on and how we know that they interact with folks. So we don't score. So like one thing we've totally pulled out of is email opens used to have a score of like 1 point. We made that 0. Yep. It was not enough for us to just say that somebody opened an email. You ultimately need the engagement. So we, anytime somebody opens an email, that doesn't really matter. It's really like, did they click into something? And we've been testing a lot on just trying to have one call to action in certain campaigns, but then we've also tested, if we want to show some case studies and they all have a different message, we might show 3 in an email, and those case studies are pretty nice pieces of content that might stimulate a conversation. So those get higher point value if they do that. And then on the grading side, because that's kind of, one doesn't go without the other, we spent a lot of, we're very focused on company size, the title, the location, and because a lot of stuff on the website side is Alexa score. We want people that have a lot of traffic are going to have a lot of search volume, and so we've really kind of whittled it down to saying, hey, if you're a really big business, we're going to be able to do provide a lot more value to you, and if you're a director VP of a couple of different titles, then you should be an A. And if you're in a big business and you're maybe a manager or support, you should be a B. But the threshold to kind of throw the MQL over to sales is you need to be a C- or above, and you need to have at least 50 points, and you need to have engaged with us within the last 30 days. And that's kind of the way we then throw it over, and then SDRs qualify it, and if it's a good lead and they go schedule meetings, great, they're now in a sales cycle. If they don't, they send it back to us, and we've got nurture emails that basically on a regular cadence send more high-level thought leadership stuff to get the score. We essentially remove the points and we start over, and we go back to try to get them to engage with more stuff because they're just not ready to have a sales conversation yet, or they're not interested, but we still want to like say hi to them every now and then just to be top of mind without being too pushy. Does that answer your question?
Yes, very well.
Great, you bet.
So my question is on the SDR where you're taking someone from MQL and trying to get them to a sales qualified lead.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those SDRs obviously must be, they have to input the data somewhere. Do they do it in Pardot? Do they do it in Salesforce? Like, where does that?
They do it in Salesforce.
They do it in Salesforce.
Yeah, so for us, they might they might say, hey, this is a lead that actually should go into nurture. They change the lead status in Salesforce to nurture, and then we have a rule that basically pulls the field that the lead status field. It's a custom field for us. We say, hey, anytime that lead status gets changed to nurture, add them to this list, and then we tie that list to an email nurture stream, and then they're part of the nurture, which is like, for a 2-person marketing team, pretty awesome. Like, you can't do that manually and it's not a set it forget it thing. Like, we check all that stuff on a weekly basis to tweak things, because again, it's all about iteration. But if we weren't using marketing automation, I couldn't send 4 or 5 emails in a nurture. I couldn't build all these other nurture paths. I couldn't set up ways to easily throw things over the fence to sales. It would be, I need like 7 people. So that's why it's nice.
That's great.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the other interaction between Pardot and Sales Cloud in your context? Like, beyond this one, is there anything else that?
So everything ends up in Pardot and then gets pushed over to Salesforce. The reporting in Salesforce is really critical for us because there's just other data that we're utilizing, like revenue data, opportunities generated, that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, the marketing efforts need to not only generate meetings, but they need to close business. So we have like a marketing generated opportunity MGO report that shows the number of opportunities that have been generated, closed won, closed lost, what that revenue looked like, what were the different channels that came out of that. So, like some might come from conferences, some might come from outbound email, some came from webinars and ads and that sort of thing. I also tie content to it as well, so because it's not enough to just write a white paper or a piece of content. You want to make sure that content did its job and delivered the right message. And so I track that as well. And so if we know that just because a white paper got 1,000 downloads, if it didn't generate any opportunity, that means that something like maybe a really sticky title or like really good ad copy, but the meat wasn't there. And then we can try to get some feedback on, okay, well, was that good, not good? And that's the nice thing about the tie between Pardot and Salesforce is you can get the full story and not just part of it. And I think that's really important as sales and marketing teams get more collaborated in their effort.
Great. I know we're real close on time, so maybe just one quick final question for the group. Maybe if there was one thing you wish you would have known before using Pardot, what would that have been?
The great thing about Pardot, I know I'm the customer here, and I'm here for this, but what's been super helpful for me is I didn't know any of this stuff 3-4 years ago, and the strategies that I know now have allowed me to ramp the Swiftype infrastructure and campaigns up a lot faster. And I've certainly figured a lot of that out just on trial and error of doing my own thing. What's been super nice is the customer support team with Pardot is awesome. I've had multiple conversations with the advocacy team. They give me one-on-one time to really understand like where we're at and try certain things. Like there's a great nurture exercise like, hey, if somebody downloads a piece of content, maybe you want to go ahead and lead with your strongest offer and get them to a demo or free trial immediately. And if they don't, you can maybe ask for it again or maybe take a little step back, throw some thought leadership at them, and if they engage, then go back and try to hit them up again. Like, because if you want to capture all those hot folks as quickly as possible, get them over the fence. Like, I'm thinking about 50 things at any given moment, and to have an advocate tell me that kind of stuff has been incredibly useful. But then even something as special as or specific as like, hey, I'm trying to figure out why this thing didn't port into Pardot, or I can't understand this list. Just chatting like in the chat box in the Pardot portal, they literally, in most cases, will respond within seconds. Sometimes it's like maybe 45 seconds, and they're super friendly. They've been very helpful, and just getting not only the tactical help from the chat folks, but then also the strategy side as well. Just has been really helpful for me to be like, wow, if I knew all this stuff 4 years ago, like
yeah.
that was. But it's been my ramp up's been pretty fast because that support team's been there.
Awesome.
So-
That's great.
I'll add to that one then. Why Pardot versus Marketo or versus the other competitors?
So for me, when I've done the evaluation one time, that was at the previous company. Marketo was a lot more expensive. It was, from a user experience, harder to understand. And so that like, I want to go in and be able to use a tool and not try to figure out where stuff is and try to set things up. And the pricing was like, they're nickeling and diming you on seats and like all this other stuff. And the pricing structure here is like, 3 different tiers, unlimited seats, like it's all good. And then you come in and it's a really easy user interface. I got trials of Marketo, Eloqua, and Pardot before I even made the buy. And I just felt like I could understand like how to build an email campaign, how to create custom redirects to tie to ads or to certain things in email, like so much easier than the Marketo side of things. And again, like software is there to not only provide you scale, but to help you save time so that you can go focus on doing the other things that you're responsible for. And so if I could go build things a lot faster without messing up or that sort of thing, then that allows me to go spend that time doing something else. So that ultimately is where it landed. It was like ease of use, easy pricing structure to understand, and so that was great. And at that time, Pardot wasn't even part of ExactTarget, which then got bought by Salesforce. It was just like, it's just marketing automation.
Great. Do we have time for another question, or I know we have another group coming in as well?
Yeah, Tommy's real quick about it.
I was just going to double click on that actually because I kind of am a customer.
Oh, great.
As your business scales as well, I'll never forget when we had the first real big problem that was really good of people are renewing. How do we engage with those customers post-sale as well? And normally when we had a team of 1, maybe 2 people on the marketing side, projects would get delayed. But for our customer success team to be able to jump into Pardot and actually build out those campaigns themselves was massive to us. Not only being able to load the funnel initially, but then also re-engage with those customers over time. So
we have the same
That's
thing.
awesome.
Customer success team does monthly webinars, updating on new features and demoing existing tools for new customers. They're all on Pardot, running all that stuff through Pardot. Like, we don't have to deal with seat licenses. Like, I don't have to deal with it. I just like let them go do their thing. We bless it to make sure it's all good, but I don't have to, like, I'm not in the weeds. I can literally, at a high level, project manage and let them do their thing, and I don't have to worry about it.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Awesome. Well, thank you, Ben, for sharing a
Thanks
little
for
bit
having
about
me.
your Pardot experience, and thank you guys for chatting with us a little bit and asking some great questions. And I think you have another presenter coming in, but I'd be happy to stick around a little bit too if anybody wants to chat more about Pardot.